Alrighty, hey y'all, how's it going? I'm Caitlin Robertson, back here with Save Dish. And today Keo will not be with us, so tear, very big tear. But don't worry, because we still have another K in the midst. Mr. Khalil.
What's going on, everybody? I'm Khalil Green. I'm actually serving as the executive producer, but I decided to come on the couch today and participate in this discussion. So I'm excited to be here.
Yes, and excited to have you. It's gonna be great.
Appreciate
Normally
y'all.
he's like you said, he's behind the camera, but it's fun to see the mix up.
And he's being humble. He's like the smart person on the team who makes sure we actually have guided discussions.
Yeah.
And he's like a super educated. He's one of the people who make sure we know what we're doing.
Oh Lord.
And you just got your what?
I just got my doctorate.
Doctor.
Not even
Dr.
Dr.
Khalil.
Excuse me. You should have corrected me.
Please say the doctor.
Yeah.
Put some respect.
I'm sorry.
On my name? No,
Dr. Khalil.
I appreciate it. No, I saved doctor for informal spaces that don't look like ours. But here where it's family.
That's
It's
very
just
Oh
real.
man.
Because in the club, we all fam. Sorry, I had to.
He did it.
I had to. I'm so sorry. I'm
Yeah.
so sorry.
Let's never do that again.
It's like a tick. It just came out. Anyways.
Yeah, please move us on.
Anyways. Today we're gonna be talking about a pretty sensitive subject, I guess, depending on who you're talking to. But I'm gonna pass it off to you, Keith.
Yes.
Get it
So
started.
should we do the ish?
We should
Oh,
do
we
this.
should.
Let's get to the ish first. Before we get into the topic,
There we
hate
go.
to leave you out with that cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Let's get into our issues and how God is showing up. Do both or either or, man. Whichever one resonates the most with you right now.
I guess pass
Killer
it back
Kate,
to me. We're just
what's
over here volleyballing it back and forth. But yeah. So my ish, which has been my biggest ish for a while now, is I'm taking my medical license exam step 1 on June 11th. So that's coming up eventually. But yeah, it's just been 40 days and 40 nights of pure discipline and
Mhm.
torture.
Mhm.
But you know, it'll come to fruition. It's an 8-hour exam. You never know what they're gonna throw at you, whatever. But you gotta do it to be a doctor. So eventually, I'll be joining the doctor club. But I say all that to say, in the way that God is showing up for me, I feel like He's really increased my dependency upon Him, and I
Mhm.
appreciate that. Because I don't think I've ever craved for Him as much as I have in this season. Because leaning on everything else hasn't been sustainable, you know, for this long.
Mhm.
So that's my ish and my what God is doing, or how He is showing up for me.
Depending on who you ask, right?
That's it.
I
That's a
was
whole nother
that maybe we should tap into that one day,
Absolutely.
or if it
Yeah.
matters.
It matters.
There we go.
The
We'll get
tea
into it. My
matters.
ish is this parenthood thing, man. Like, there's so many little decisions and like so many little conversations, and lately I just been going down this paranoia rabbit hole of like, am I saying the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? And because you see how you impact them,
Sure.
and then you see other children
Mhm.
or older children, or you talk to other people who have been parents, and you know they have completely different philosophies, and then you start to sometimes question
Yeah.
how you're moving. So that's been a thing. I think on that same vein, the way God is showing up is there's these moments where like my daughters will do something or say something that'll affirm my approach. But it seems like one of those things where you just never know, and you never, like, my wife and I have tried to stop saying like getting it right, because I don't think that's a thing. Like,
Yeah.
you just do what you think is best, pray, and hope the world don't teach them things that you don't want them to be taught yet. So yeah, man, the stresses of fatherhood.
Mm.
That's normal.
My
What you got?
ish. With me recently receiving my doctorate, the ish has been feeling overwhelmed with the adjustment of it, and as well as it doesn't fully feel like I've had the time to really not do anything in between work and functioning with other people, and also having a desire to be more social. Because for 8 years, I felt guilty about being social.
Mm.
Um,
Eyes
because
on
there
the
were-
prize.
Yeah.
yeah, because
that's
there
real.
was a looming task that needed to be completed,
Yeah.
and
So real.
and ironically, it still has to be completed in a sense. I still have to turn back over more revisions
Mhm.
for its publication. So I that the issue is the overwhelming of the responsibilities
Yeah.
of being a doctor, even post.
Mhm.
And you sign up. I signed up for it. I think how God has shown up is that there have been a number of people in my life that have been encouraging of me finding ways to take time for myself, and also um, the need for community to remind you that you need to lean on God.
Mm.
That importance to me practicing that with my Bible study. Like this past week, we didn't read any verses, no themes. It was just more so checking in, like what's going on and where are the next steps moving forward for us in this Bible study, how we can support each other. And I think that was critical because you know, we drill
Mhm.
so much of like, all right, we need to get this topic down. We need to have these verses,
Yeah.
read, and so we can talk. But there's a time to process as much as there's a time to actually do work.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um,
I mean, you got DC summer right around the corner.
right.
I'll force you to come outside. Not that I'm outside too much, but there will be a few
We definitely should.
things on my calendar.
Yeah. I got
And
a couple ideas.
And then I think there's also an element of it's like Alpha, right?
Mm-hmm.
For those, he's frat.
That's right. You don't throw it one time.
There is the real work starts now. That's coming for you
Oh
too.
my
Like it's
God.
not like, oh, I'm a doctor now.
Yeah.
I can chill. Nope. Now you got to be a doctor.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
you got to find those times to relax and breathe and unwind. And I think I've gotten better at that the last few years than I was before. So
Yeah,
happy to support if I can.
for sure.
That's it. The topic. So today we're talking about hurt, and specifically how hurt takes place within the church. How in some cases that's for a lot of people that's the biggest source of
Mhm.
hurt.
Mhm.
And it's an open-ended. I think we don't want it to be too strict in terms of where we go with it.
Sure.
But just want to talk about that theme of hurt in the church place and how we navigate it, how it affects
Mhm.
our relationships, with Christ and with our church family.
Mhm.
Air quotes if necessary, because it don't always feel like family.
Right.
I mean, does family always feel like family though?
That's fair. That's fair. Maybe it does.
And what
maybe
does-
it feels
And
too
what
much
is the
like
feeling of
family.
family?
And what
Yeah.
does family feel like?
Yeah.
We mention each other in this space as brothers and sisters in Christ,
Mhm.
and we the idea is spoken about, us operating that way. But if anybody knows anything about family dynamics, oftentimes brothers and sisters fight and bicker. Ironically, Pastor Nuttall in this past week's sermon, he brought up even the dynamics of his sister and his in his household, and how they would argue and point fingers of who did what and when, where, why. And in this topic, I think it's befitting because essentially, if you look at our circumstances in that regard, we're still operating under hurting each other in that context as brothers and sisters, even though it doesn't feel brotherly or sisterly. It is that's if you look at it in that context, it gives you a different outlook on even how the approach is going to God with those circumstances. And there's so many, and we're going to get into a number of them.
Yeah.
I think the one that automatically comes up to me in the context of church is that a lot of people have talked about not feeling welcome as they are
Mhm.
in the church space.
Despite the saying,
Yeah, come as you are.
come as you are.
Really?
All are welcome.
And granted, there's an etiquette or code of ethics in any space, whether
Mhm.
that's the street or the church house. I think the approaches of how we've gone about ushering people in has been callous at times.
Yeah.
And I think some of it has to deal with the fact that it makes how people come as they are have made other people feel uncomfortable.
Mm.
Because
Yeah.
the church is an isolating space as much as it's supposed to be a safe space. If you've gotten used to being in that space after a certain period of time, and people come in unchurched, it's also a reflection of yourself.
Yeah, and I think that part is where some of the friction comes from. I think once you're churched, to use your language, I think we have this tendency, or this like almost tendency to repel things that remind us of our unchurched selves.
Mhm.
And I think sometimes that's because we're not as churched as we like
That's
to
right.
to suggest we are. And having those things, those elements so close can be triggering, can be tempting in some cases. And so it's like there's a Kendrick line, and I can't remember the song, but he say, "My hands dirty, you worry about mud in your sink." And that always reminds me of church. Because it's like, I'm supposed to be coming in here to wash my hands, but you trying to keep it clean. So how do you deal with that tension of, there is a brand, like the church does have a brand to protect. And so how do you manage the brand of your church, especially if you're like a pastor or somebody in leadership and you want to, build a brand while also being open and welcoming to things that may dilute, for lack of a better phrase. And then on the receiving end, how does that translate to hurt?
Kaylin, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I'm just listening. These are really interesting, cool points. I think that like backing up a little bit, I like to think of like the origin of where these feelings come from, where people feel, hurt. And a lot of people are introduced to church out of obligation, whereas like Christianity is supposed to be more about relationship, you know? So it's like, oh, by the time I become consciously aware that I'm alive and sitting somewhere, I'm 3-4 years old sitting in a pew being told that this is what I should believe and sing this song and stand up now and sit down here and blase, blase, blase. But in the same sense, you're also told that like, this is a sanctuary, a place of relief. It's supposed to be a safe haven. And so and this is like if you're raised in the church, right? So when you start to program your mind to think that way, and that safe haven feels like more of a war zone than a safe haven, I feel like that's kind of like the seeding for how we get the callous heart, in the church. But I think also another thing, and I find myself guilty of this like to this day, is when we're offended by people in the church, I find myself putting more responsibility that I should be putting on God onto them, if that makes sense.
Say more.
So like, if I'm like offended by something, like, I had a friend in the church like say something that I was hurt by, right? But because we're striving to be more like Christ, that's the goal, right? Yeah. But I think sometimes like our human minds, we think that let me not say that.
Say it.
I don't say we think that we can be Christ, but we think that we can do his job sometimes better than he can.
And the language you use is you strive to be more like Christ. So I think there is a element of what you're talking about.
The closer you get to Christ, the more you start feeling yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, like I'm out here really doing a thing, But at the same time, when you walk with people who are also doing that, you begin to see Christ in them, but can mistake them for Christ. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Sure.
Yeah. So
shout out to our ministers.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
and a lot of times it's those titles, right?
And the clergy.
Oh, you got the title.
So I'm over here struggling. Yeah. But okay, wait. So to just finish that thought, it's like if I if I hold you to a standard, right, and you say something that offends me, now when I look at you and I see God, now God has offended me because when I look at you, I see God. Do you see what I'm saying now?
Yeah, I actually that's tricky, and I understand exactly what you're saying, because also there are people who reinforce this idea outside of the person, but even the person can directly or indirectly reinforce this idea. There is a level of reverence that I'm expecting you to hold me to.
Yeah.
And this is applicable not only in the church spaces, but also in like even our familiar spaces. And so there can be a contradictory expectation
Mhm.
and engagement between the parties, because on one end it kind of goes back to the do as I say, not as I do
Mhm.
dynamic.
Mhm.
Well, I'm supposed to exalt you as if you're a demigod, but then at the same time make allowances for your humanity.
Mm.
But where does that put my lived experience that I'm
Yeah.
having with you? And who is going to acknowledge that?
Mhm.
Mhm.
And so in the context of this happening inside the church space, I believe or suspect that is something that occurs or has occurred throughout the generations of church, but especially, we Black folks, we're talking about the Black church experience.
Mhm.
That has happened a lot.
Yeah.
To tie into what you were talking about earlier, when you talk about the origins, one of the reasons you brought up what it is like for a young person to experience church. And I think that's also associated with when we talk about the Black church space, we cannot speak about this experience without speaking about where church came
Mm.
to us as a culture. It came out of the enslavement period um, in this country. And so the indoctrination process of church culture, especially if you grew up in the South, it's heavily rooted
Mhm.
in that. And so that's why, I mean, if I can just be honest, if you want to talk about the context of hurt, that hurt is a continuation
Mhm.
of that lived
Yeah.
experience. And that's why children experiencing that indoctrination and experiencing that level of hurt often felt unheard,
Mhm.
especially if you come from a space that tells you, well, children are supposed to be seen
Mhm.
and not heard.
Mhm.
But out the mouth of babes,
Mm.
you see how
Yeah.
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 Tons of
But also, like,
contradictions.
yeah, because it's like, dang, thought like literally just left my
No, all
mind.
good.
That's
It's all
But
right.
no, I
crazy.
was just gonna say, like, I think the history of it, I think, sparks a natural distrust or like,
Mhm, mhm.
you know.
Oh, yes. Sorry, that's what I was gonna say.
And then I was just gonna say, church. If you have ill intentions, church
Mhm.
represents a really great opportunity for you to manipulate.
Ooh,
Mhm.
yeah.
And like, even to your point, like I can if I have a title, especially, I can easily swing from I'm in this role, you need to respect me, you need to
Mhm.
revere me, you need to
Mhm.
kind of follow my guidance.
Mhm.
And as soon as I need to, I can switch to, well, you're not God, you can't judge me, and
Mhm.
suddenly absolve myself of all accountability.
Like use it
You
when
know,
it's
yeah,
convenient.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's convenient.
That's
And I
right.
think once you start to notice those patterns, bringing it back to the theme, like that's where the hurt can come from. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, you took those things that were near and dear to me. You took that passion that I was building for growing my relationship with Christ, growing my presence in this church place, and you used it to hurt me. And what do I do with that? Because to Kayla's point, when I see you,
Mhm.
you are the church, right? If not for the people in here, church is just a building.
That's right.
So the people have to be the church.
That's right.
And I think anything you put in the hands of humans, and that's where I'm cynical, but I'm also more comfortable. I think because I just recognize the nature of man.
Yeah.
I know that some of these people are going to misuse this thing.
Mhm.
And so I just try to protect myself and my family from
Yeah.
being so vulnerable
Mhm.
to where when that happens, it hurts us too deeply. And that may lead to me not being as leaned in a church
Mhm.
as, a pastor may want me to be, but it feels almost like a necessary like layer of protection.
So my question to that is multifaceted in the sense that church hurt happens to a number of people. But historically, we have recently found that African American men took a big exodus away
Mhm.
from church, and for a number of reasons, part of which was church hurt. Now, I know our church, along with many other churches, have made valiant efforts to ensure that Black men have been desired and sought after to be in this space and to show up with their presence and their input. But I think what often does not get talked about is the hurt that Black men experience in these spaces, ironically, where at least from a figurehead standpoint, the leadership is male dominated, but it is woman supported and primarily function as a matriarchy outside of maybe his position and maybe other ministers. So I want us to touch on what that looks like, and even also let me not exclude our sisters, but even how church hurt shows up for our Black women in the church space when it comes to a multiple of issues. But I would probably assume first and foremost of how they portrayed themselves in certain spaces, or how they're perceived to be portraying themselves. And I'm sure a number of things, but that's the immediate thing that comes to mind. That's for both of y'all.
No, I think that's an interesting point, and it's one that I would push back on, because when I think about the exodus of Black men from the church, in my mind, it's more of a pull function from the world than a push function from the church.
Say more to that.
Like, I think it's just more convenient, to hear the narrative of you're a man, you have great dominion, you don't have to rely on anyone, you're independent, you're strong. Like all of those messages that tend to, if you're not reading and you're not thoughtful about it, can conflict with the notion of, oh, you need to submit to God. Oh, you need to honor your wife. Like some things that may cause you to deny yourself some of your worldly desires.
Sure.
It's just way more convenient to be out there as a man. And I think that same world pushes messages on women that will shame them or shun them for potentially feeding those same desires that we're instructed to feed.
Sure.
That may push them toward the church. Oh, you need to be like this to be valuable. And men, you can move however you want to be valuable, so long as you're able to make money, or some of those other things that are less valued if you're trying to live in alignment with God. Right? It's more principled.
Yeah.
Right? And those principles is tough. When you look in the
Absolutely.
mirror and nobody's around, are you going to move in a principled fashion, or are you going to feed those desires of the world? And so I think that makes it harder for a man to say, well, let me go in here and let me be a part of this flock and try to follow these rules and, adhere to these godly ways. So I don't see it as the church pushing them out. I see it as the world saying, come over here.
Could it be both?
It's better. It could be. That's why I want to, I just said that because I want to hear the other side of it.
Sure.
And I would love to hear how a non-man sees it
Non-man.
in terms of, because you've witnessed the same, ratios in church, and I'm sure
At school,
you have
church,
thoughts.
DC, everywhere.
Yeah.
I'll be safe out here. But don't mind me. What was I about to say? Yeah, no, I don't know if it's both though, because I feel like whenever they see young Black men in a church, it's like you won the lottery. It's Christmas Day. Like I feel like it's very acknowledged, and they do things to try to keep them here. So I don't know if the church is like necessarily pushing them out, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah,
I've seen some of that.
What?
Just the way you're celebrated as opposed to women. It's like you're supposed to be here.
Right. No, literally. And that's what it
Yes.
feels like as a young woman sometimes. It's like, oh, like you're supposed to be the good girl. You're supposed to be sitting in, the front row. You're supposed to be dressed and covered a certain way. And then going back to the come as you are thing, like if somebody walks in and the skirt is too short or the clothes are too tight, they're showing too much or whatever, you're looking at them sideways, which granted, like, maybe cover up a little bit, whatever, you're going to church. But still, it's like in the same way that like a young man may walk in, I don't like specifically
Say it.
list something, and then
Say
somebody
it.
walks in on Sunday like this. But like if you walk in,
Man, it
like,
happens.
no haircut, some baggy sweatpants, like you look like you just rolled out of bed, and it's like, oh, we're just glad for you to be here. But if a woman did the same, I don't think it's the same exact response.
Sure.
And even like growing up, like I had friends get pregnant in high school and they were no longer allowed to sing in the choir, and people would like, you could literally see people like whispering as they're walking around for offering, and they all ended up leaving like the church once we got like, to college age and things like that. So,
Understandably.
but like if a boy brought his kid to church, you're just glad that he's there with his son in church. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So there is definitely double standards. Is that what they call them?
Absolutely.
Yeah. But that's just my perspective. I'm one person.
Sure. I mean, both of you all share similar sentiments. I subscribe to the idea of both and, meaning that there are a multitude or multiple things that are taking place that exist and they happen simultaneously. I don't disagree with either one of you all's points about how there are double standards that, especially because of the shortage and then the expectation of a patriarchal value system within the Christian ideology
Mhm.
that says that a man is to be the head of the house, as well as God being associated with being automatically a man.
Right.
There is that pool. What I will suggest is that there are a multitude of ways in which that men still experience hurt, even for that of as more not just commentary that feels defensive, but even sexual trauma that has happened in the church that often does not get talked about, especially if you are associated with being what it is to be a man, and then you are put in a position, I'm supposed to be put in a position to protect, and you can't protect yourself. So
No, I'm
And,
a part. No, we
I was gonna
gonna
say,
we gonna pick that up.
that's a lot to eat
You
on
know,
that plate.
I think that's a great segue to
Yes.
another element of this
Yes.
conversation.
Yes.
So we're gonna keep it going.
Yes.
But for our guests, you're gonna have to wait. So we're gonna continue this conversation, and I can't wait to double click into what Khalil just said and really unpack how men and women deal with church hurt and how it impacts them in their life outside of the walls of the church. So
Yes.
y'all stay tuned. Check us out next episode, and we about to get right back into it.